all pleased to see confirmation of significant new investments and some very important rule changes around those investments, particularly when it comes to transit. To see $3.4 billion for public transit in this country over the next 3 years. And new eligibility rules. So, for example, we can spend that money now potentially on planning and on rehabilitation, whatever the area of highest need is for the city. That flexibility we did not used to have, and so that's a significant change for us. But the most significant change on transit that we're seeing is the increase in eligible costs up to 50%. And this is finally a recognition from the largest order of government about the relative scale differences between cities and particularly the federal government. They have much greater fiscal capacity, and they also get a much stronger return on investment in terms of the taxation off the economic impact of those infrastructure projects. And so 50% contribution from the federal government is a really transformative policy shift. Even though we don't have all of the funding, the $20 billion for transit all locked down over the next 10 years yet, those two changes, the eligibility changes and the 50% share, are huge for cities. It's what we've been calling for. The government has listened and heard us on that, and I think that that's in no small part to Minister Sohi's background and understanding of those issues that municipalities face. And so we're very, very pleased to see that change, the new money and the changes around the rules for the new transit fund. We're also seeing a significant investment around water and wastewater and green infrastructure. For the water and wastewater infrastructure, we're also seeing that new 50% share as opposed to the traditional third model. And again, that's a huge breakthrough for municipalities in this budget. Finally, the third area that we've spent a lot of time talking about is housing. Some promising investments in here, $1.5 billion over the next 5 years for a number of housing initiatives, including increased funding for ending homelessness, increased funding for shelters for people fleeing violence of one kind or another, and some stopgap funding for maintenance of existing housing funding agreements, as well as a little bit of new money for creation of new units. It's not quite what we're hoping for yet, but we also understand that there's a national housing strategy discussion starting. And so in each of these three areas, the green infrastructure, the social infrastructure, and the transit infrastructure, realistically, we know we weren't going to get all $60 billion explained to us in the first budget. But if we have the same kind of relationship that we've had in the preceding months getting to this point, if we have that for the next several months working towards the next budget, then I think we'll be in very good shape.